All right, we're back in Photoshop here, and we're going to take a look at gradients. So we're going to start, I just have a file here with a background and a layer that has a selection on it. I'm going to start by adding a layer. Notice it has jumped to the top, and then I'm going to grab my gradient tool. So it looks like this. So it looks kind of similar to Photoshop. If I click and hold on this, I have a paint bucket tool and a 3D material drop. We are using the gradient tool. So what you'll first notice is when you go up to, sorry, I'm trying to zoom out for you. When you go up to the top, our control panel, our option panel has changed. The first thing that we can take a look at is what is actually in the gradient bar. If I click on the color here where the gradient is shown, it's going to open a gradient editor, and I can choose existing options, or I can just go in and I can double click on these little color stops, and I can choose a different color if that's how I would like to work. There's a lot of different settings in here. We're not really going to worry about those right now. I'm going to click OK, and you can see that's what my gradient looks like. So if I go over to make sure my layer that I just created is highlighted, I can click and drag and apply that gradient. Now you've got different styles of gradients, and I have the diamond gradient selected. So when I click and drag, it's more of a diamond type of shape. And it depends on where I start my click and where I end my drag to see what it's going to look like. There's a linear gradient. That's just going to go straight across the whole shape that I have. And then the next one is a radial gradient. This guy is called the angle gradient. And again, when I click and drag, it starts from one color and then goes around to the other one. So those are your actual styles of gradients that you can apply. I'm going to stay with the diamond one for my next part to show you. As we move across, this is called a mode or a blend mode. And what's nice about the blend modes when we use these, there's so many different options. I'm going to choose one that kind of gives some crazy appearances, and I'm going to use difference. So the next time that I do a click and drag, it's going to keep this last color, and actually the interaction between the two colors that were in the gradient are going to create a different result. If I do that again, we're going to go back to the original kind of set of colors. So it all depends on how far you click and drag and how many times you click and drag to create that kind of iridescent and final appearance. You can also mess with the opacity. So I can reduce that so that it's not as intense and do a click and drag, and then it becomes a little more subtle. And obviously, as you change all of these things, that's going to have a major effect on the final appearance of what you have left. So maybe I don't want to use difference. I'm going to try using, I'll go back up to the top, and I'm going to use a multiply. And when I click and drag, you can see it's kind of intensifying the colors. It's saturating the colors. So take some time and play around with the gradient tool. One other thing I think I want to point out to you, when we look at the gradient tool, there are some basic defaults here that you can use. So this time I just clicked on the drop-down menu instead of in the color area, and there's some basic options here. What you'll notice is these will reflect whatever colors that you choose. So I have a foreground and a background. The basic colors are always going to use the foreground and background color. The first one is those two colors. The second one is from the foreground to transparent, and then of course the last one is from the background, or just black to white. So that one will always be in there. And that's your gradient tool.